So I've been meaning to do this video on our new Year 4 rookie options for a while. I apologize for the delay. Got a new puppy, moved, just been busy. So anyway, this is the video. It's up and ready here for the draft, and let's get started. So this is partially the reason why this video is late. So I got a new little puppy here. Her name is Sonora, and she's a very cutie. She likes to give kisses, and she's a handful. So blame this little ball of cuteness on why this video is late. So to start, I guess we'll just say that this is only for the Andrew Luck class and going forward that these options are for. If you have players in rookie contracts before that, it doesn't apply to them. In the NFL, obviously it started with the Cam Newton draft class, but we delayed ours a year, so this is going to be with the Andrew Luck class. So basically, all of our rookie options happen in year 4 of their rookie contract. That's kind of the magical year. But before we get into that real quick, we need to talk about one real quick tweak that we're going to do on our holdout options. So the first option we're going to change in our holdouts, whenever a player holds out, there you have 4 options. The first option is just to accept the player's contract demands and then write up a new contract. We're going to tweak that a little bit, and we're going to call it you accept the new salary demands, not necessarily the contract demand. So you will just agree to raise the player's salary, but really the contract remains the same. It's the same length, and it's not a new contract. The reason we are going to do that is basically it's the same functionality, except again, the contract remains the same, so that's going to apply here to our 5th year option that we have on our rookies. So you'll see that in a little bit. So again, we're just going to tweak that one option on a holdout. Instead of tearing up the old contract, giving in and giving the player a new contract, you're just going to amend the old contract and give him the salary that he wants. And therefore that contract remains in place. It's not even really that big of a deal when you're talking about non-players who aren't in their rookie contracts, but it is when they are in the rookie contract. Essentially what would happen is if you tear up their rookie contract, then the player is no longer eligible for the 5th year option. So it's more or less of a kind of closing a loophole here. So the first thing to know before we even talk about what our options are, the first thing we need to know is that now players in their rookie contracts can and will hold out in their 4th year of their contract. You'll have those 4 options. Obviously that one we tweaked a little bit, so you can still deal with holdouts the same way, but we used to always have it that players couldn't hold out in their rookie contract. Now they just can't hold out the first 3 years. They can and will hold out if they meet all the holdout criteria in their 4th year. Alright, so we're all going to have 3 options in a rookie's 4th year of his rookie contract. The first thing we can do is we can restructure their contracts. We weren't allowed to restructure rookie contracts before, now we can. The second thing we can do is we can extend our 5th year option for the players that were selected in the 1st round. And then the third thing we can do is we can just do nothing. We don't have to do anything with the player. We can let them play out their contract and then just use our restricted free agency tagging system at the end of their 4th year, basically in the 5th year, to retain the players if we want to. So now let's go into a little bit of detail about each one. So let's kind of go into a little more detail of what our options are. The first thing is, let's say you do have a player that holds out in his 4th year. What can you do? Your first option is just to absolutely do nothing. you can just basically you call his bluff. He's not going to play, and he can sit the whole season without playing at all. Now, typically, what would happen in a regular contract is that player would have to play any following years. But since this is the fourth season, it's the last year on the player's rookie contract. However, at any point during that time, if that player is a first rounder, you can exercise your fifth year option. So he won't play at all for the fourth year, but then he will come and play for the fifth year at a higher price. And we'll get into that fifth year option price in a second here. Your second option, obviously, when a player holds out, is you can just waive the player. Just cut them. You don't want anything to do with them. The third option is you can renegotiate a new contract with that player. That'll be a five-year deal at 70% of the transition tag during the off season, and it looks like we're going to pass that initiative where it'll be an 80% of the transition tag if you do it. If you decide to do that and the holdout during the season and renegotiate the contract that way. Or you can simply accept the new salary demands. So the contract length will stay the same. So basically it's a 4-year contract. The player will play through the fourth year except for at the higher price that he demands. Obviously, even after that, you have options. If you go that route, since he's in the last year of the contract, you can renegotiate that. Or again, you can, if it's a first round player, you can then exercise your fifth year option. So assuming that none of your players have held out, I guess your first option in a rookie's fourth year would be to restructure that contract. Now this would be one of your veteran restructures or your one restructure that you get per year. I've kind of renamed it. It's a veteran restructure. That's the one you get every year. And then holdout restructures are really unlimited to, you can use as many holdout restructures as you have holdouts. Now this isn't going to be a hugely popular option. It's with our new our rookie wage scale, you're really only going to save, I think, less than $2. I think I did the math. But hey, if you're up against the cap and this is the only option that you have to restructure a player in a rookie contract, you can certainly do it. However, if you do restructure in year 4, if that player is eligible for the fifth year option, you're going to void that fifth year option because basically the restructured contract is a new contract, and it's what I call a big boy contract. It's not a rookie contract. It's a veteran contract. Also, too, if you want to restructure a rookie, you probably are better off waiting, extending that fifth year option, and then restructuring that. Obviously, sometimes, fifth year options are only for first rounders, so you might have a player, a second round player that you just can't do that to, so you are going to restructure them then. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be a hugely popular option, but there may be some decent players. A good wide receiver too. He's just going to be a good, 150 to 230 point player. You just lock him in. If you restructure his rookie deal, now you've locked him in for 9 years. 200 points a game for 9 years. It's not a horrible option. The second option that you can do with a player in their fourth year is to exercise your fifth year option. Basically, any first round pick, now they have to be first round picks, can have their contract extended from 4 years to 5 years at any time during year 4 before their last game. If you do extend this option, players picked top 5, basically the top 5 players, must be paid the transition tag salary, and all other players in that first round must be paid the low tender salary. It's kind of cool because it works very similarly to our tagging options now. It's real similar to just putting a transition tag or a low tender tag on a player, except you have no risk of losing the player, nor do you have to match any higher offers that will be made to the player. So it's real similar to having like extra tags to give out and without any risk of losing those players. Obviously then too, that 5th year, since they are in the final deal of their contract, you can then restructure that. And you're probably better off restructuring, doing that, exercising your 5th year option and restructuring, because then you almost guarantee, well, at least you protect yourself from the player ever holding out. If you were to just bypass that 5th year option and not exercise it and then restructure in the 4th year, the player is going to make a lot less money, and if he ever becomes a top 10 player, he will hold out. So that's kind of your options there, is you can either restructure in the 4th year, hold the player for 9 years, the player is more likely to hold out. You can extend that 5th year option, restructure it then if you want, retain the player for 10 years, and I can't guarantee that he won't hold out because that's a formula, but he's got a much less chance of ever holding out in his career. And then your third option in a rookie's 4th year is to just do nothing. You can let the player play the whole 4th year, and then basically you either let him experience free agency like anybody else, or you can tag him under the rules of the restricted free agency. That's an easy one. All right, let's look at some examples. First of all, we're going to look. All these examples are going to use the current 2014 tag prices. Those prices are fluid and they depend on our market, so I can no way guarantee that these are going to be the same prices next year, but we'll just use those as an example. Also, keep in mind that our 2012 rookies are a little more expensive than any rookies after 2012, because we changed our rookie wage scale yet again. So keep that in mind. Players might be a little more prone to hold out in the future than with the Andrew Luck rookie class. Okay, so let's look at a few examples here. Actually, the number 1 draft pick of the 2012 draft was actually Trent Richardson. He was offered a 4-year contract, base salary of $5.50, and in year 4 he'll be making $9. So he's never been in the top 10, so let's assume that he won't be in the top 10, so therefore he won't hold out. So what can Dr. Cube do? What are his options? His first option is he can restructure Trent Richardson to a new contract. So that contract would be an L5 $650, cap hit $7. So this would be a new, what I call a veteran contract. So if Cube did this, he would be ineligible to exercise that 5th year option, because basically it's a brand new contract, a big boy veteran contract. The second option would be to exercise the 5th year option. If Cube does this, then Trent Richardson would play year 4 at $9, but then if he extended him to play 5 years, he would be making $16 in year 5. Then in year 5, all restructure and tag app options would apply. So if he wanted to, he could restructure them at that point, or he could wait until the end of the season and then apply whatever tag that he wanted to. Obviously then, Cube's third option would be just to do nothing. Trent Richardson will play at $9 for the year. After that year, Cube can let him go into free agency. During that year, you can restructure him, or Cube could also tag the player, and all those rules would apply. So, our second example would be Andrew Luck, the class's namesake. Andrew Luck was signed to an L4 $5 contract, and in his 4th year, next year, he'll be making $8. So just for the sake of argument, let's just say Luck finishes in the top 10 for quarterbacks. So $8 is more than a third of the transition price. Again, we're just using this year's transition price. That may change next year, so this isn't final. So basically, we're assuming that Andrew Luck won't hold out because he's making enough money. So as the Troopers, my option would be to restructure. Oh, but no, that really isn't an option, is not an option. Because if I restructure his salary, then that would put his salary at less than 1/3 of the transition price. So basically, he would become a holdout. So he just would not sign the restructured contract because it's not enough money for him. So he just would not restructure the deal. Therefore, it's not my option. Then obviously, I could do one of the other two options. I could do the 5th year, exercise my 5th year option on him, and then all those, my options there would apply. Or I could do nothing, and at the end of the year, I could tag him or let him go into free agency. So again, my options are, I can't restructure him because that would put him into holdout status, so he would not accept that contract. I can extend my 5th year option, which he's a top 5 player, so he'd play for the transition price, or I could just do nothing. Now, this is where things get exciting. I'm going to kind of make a stretch here with this example. Technically, Russell Wilson was selected in the 2nd round, the 4th pick in the 2nd round. But just for the sake of this argument, since he's a name player, a Super Bowl winning player, let's say he was picked, 15th or 16th in the 1st round. So either way, even if he's 1st or 2nd round, he signed an L4 $3 contract. So in his 4th year, he's going to be making $5. So that's Russell Wilson would hold out either if he was a 1st or 2nd round pick in this situation. So let's go forward and talk about what El Norte's options would be if Russell Wilson was a 1st round pick. Obviously, he could do nothing. He could let Russell Wilson sit on the bench, sit on the couch all season. If he does that, he would honor the contract the following season. So obviously, El Norte would also have to exercise the 5th year option for Wilson to do that. If he didn't do that, he would just sit on the bench for his entire 4th year, which would be the last year of his contract, and then he would become a free agent. Obviously, since he's a holdout, El Norte could just waive him, just cut him from the team. The next option would be to renegotiate a new contract. So he would sign a 5-year deal at 75% of the transition price. If he did that, that would void that 5th year option. So that would be an L5 $15.75 contract in this case, and there would be no 5th year option. So basically, Russell Wilson would still be locked down to El Norte for 9 years, assuming he drafted him. He did acquire him in a trade, but you get the point. And then the fourth option would be, again, he's a holdout. Russell Wilson would be a holdout in this scenario. Would just be accept the new salary demands. Again, that's the key word, salary demands, not contract demands. So the contract length would stay the same, so it would still be a 4-year contract. So basically it would be an L4-3. However, the year 4 price would be $22.50, which is the transition tag price. That way, El Norte could still exercise that 5th year option, which then obviously he would take a 20% increase in price. And then from there, you can restructure it or tag him any way you like. You know, in Russell Wilson, what do you want to do? Do you want to lock him down on your team for 9 years, or do you want to lock him down onto your team for 10 years? At that point, it's your option of when do you want to restructure. Use your veteran restructure. And that may be it too. You may not have a veteran restructure available to you that 4th year, so you have to exercise your 5th year option and then restructure the player, then lock them down for 10 years. So that may sound like a long time, a decade. You know, I'm in this league for the long haul. I hope you guys are too. We've been in business for 10 years, so we can still lock guys like Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson down for 10 years. I think that's a pretty cool option for this league. So you guys have already met Sonora, so I guess I will just kind of summarize everything that I talked about here. I guess the first thing to remember is rookies can hold out in their 4th year now. They will never ever hold out their first 3 years in our league, but they can and will hold out if they meet the holdout requirements in their 4th year. If they do hold out, you can do nothing. You can let them hold out. You can just cut them. You know, that's always been the option. You can then renegotiate a new contract where they will pay, they'll play for 5 years at 70% of the transition tag, 80% if you do it during the season, and that becomes a big boy contract, a veteran contract. You would then void any claims to the 5th year option. Or your 4th option would be to accept their new salary demands. The contract would stay the same, only the salary increases, and then you would hold all of your 5th year option rights if you had any. If the player doesn't hold out, your options are your first option is you can restructure contracts in their 4th year. Again, you're only going to save a couple of bucks. However, that might be a great option for some of these, wide receiver 2s, like an Anquan Boldin. I don't think he's ever scored in the top 10, but why wouldn't you want 175, 80, 190 points locked down onto your team for 10 years? Your second option is to exercise your 5th year option, which it's very similar to our tags. Basically, you can pay the player a top 5 pick, the transition tag price, any other pick in the first round, the low tender price, and you will not lose the player, or you will not have to match a higher offer. And then your third option is just to do nothing. Just let the contract run its course. Who knows? Maybe he catches fire his 4th year and you decide, hell yeah, I'll tag the player. You can, low tender to the guy. Maybe you'll get your pick back that you used for him. Or you've retained him because, he throws up 150 points a game. So those are the options. If you guys have any questions, any discussions, put them in the message board below, and I hope I answered your questions. Talk to you later. Bye.